Hello everyone. Okay, I found James' book to be quite interesting. The overall topic itself of the ethic and moral dilemmas of children and youth participation in digital culture is very interesting. James brings up different things to consider. The topic is an important one to consider. It's good to look at how children and youth interact online, what their opinions are of it, and how they feel growing up and using these digital spaces where other children and youth, as well as adults, make questionable ethical and moral choices. However, when James is utilizing the opinions and experiences of children and youth, I find that this is where she is lacking in her argument. She uses these opinions and experiences to make her argument stronger. However, I find they make her point weaker. A lot of the time, I found that most of these experiences and opinions were given by adults. Commonly, she would quote the ages of 18 to 23-year-old, maybe older. However, these opinions are not valid for the points James is trying to make. The UNCRC states that a child is under the age of 18. Once you become 18, it is no longer a child point of view. So I'm 23, and if someone asks me my experiences of the digital world when I was a child or a youth, it's not going to be very valid if you're trying to learn more about children and youth culture. I'm now an adult, and it's now an adult review reflecting on what they had experienced. It's no longer a child-centric research approach. An adult can reflect on the past, but it may not be an exact memory, and it's no longer a child's opinion. It is now an adult opinion. When looking at children and youth culture, this is something that is separate from the adult world. If we are conducting research to find out more, we need the child-centric approach and work with the children and youth to find out more. The way children and youth engage in the online world is going to be a completely different experience from the adult. When James uses opinions and views from children and youth themselves, those help her argument, but once she mentions those of adults, it confuses the point. There's a quote on page 103 that I'm going to read out. She states, "In this book, I have explored the ways of thinking and mindsets that young people bring to their mediated interactions with intimate and unknown individuals alike. In my analysis, I was not looking for evidence of right versus wrong approaches or course of action. Rather, I sought to understand the extent to which youth perceive moral and ethical dilemmas and seek to grapple with them. My exploration did uncover inspiring morally and ethically sensitive approaches to online life among the tweens, teens, and young adults in our society." She goes on to mention, "Indeed, my purpose in writing this book is to call attention to the more troubling dispositions in online life and to explore their subtleties, and their links to broader mindsets, cultural ideologies, and social supports, including messages from adults." So I find that part a little bit confusing because she's looking at the ways youth perceive these moral and ethical dilemmas, but then she keeps mentioning young adults that she used in the study and including messages from adults. So I feel like this is where her argument is becoming weaker, because by using these adult opinions, it's no longer the views of just children and adolescents. So overall, I found this book to be very negative, and it's important to think of the negatives, but it's also important to see the positives. This book just made me think of the adults' moral panics that are about children and youth who engage in the online world. I feel like when one is conducting research on this topic, there needs to be insights of the positives and the negatives. James expresses how she was also mentioning the bright spots, but mainly focused on the dark. I did not find that she clearly stated these bright spots and only briefly mentioned them. It's okay to focus mainly on one, but the positive at least have to be acknowledged better. When looking at research with children and youth, one has to only be looking at the opinions of children and youth. When you involve adults, it becomes a completely different research project. There needs to be more information on these problems that surround the internet and how we can become more knowledgeable of the ways to fix it. There needs to be more youth interviewed to find an overall wider view on the ethical and moral dilemmas. Everyone is going to have different experiences, so we need to try and look at all of them. Overall, it's an interesting topic that could be further researched to find out more.